Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Time Pass with the New Indian Express. I have with me Rana Daggubati, and it's hard to know which world he's not conquered: technological, natural, um, a great storyteller, uh, and also now has broken several hearts by getting himself engaged, which is, I think, a major social phenomenon that has taken place completely online. But he's here today to talk to us about his forthcoming movie, Haathi Mera Saathi, which looks fantastic, and I can only imagine the kind of work he's put into it. So thank you so much first for being with us, Rana, and
Thank you.
many congratulations.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
and can we begin by your prep for the role of Haathi Mere Saathi? 200 days in various forests of India and Thailand and living with those wonderful animals. And, of course, it must have broken your heart when you saw what happened in Kerala.
See, let me just first speak about what happened. I mean,
Yeah,
probably the most cruel act of humanity that you've kind of seen, like right in front of our eyes. And also, sometimes we just feel like we're the wrong race, and these are
right.
things that put you out and showing you that. And like, see, for me, I spent a lot of time with elephants. I spent a considerable amount of time. I was training with them for over a month. I shot with them for over 60, 70 days. I was in jungles for close to 200 days.
Right.
And see, that's when you understand. I mean, the jungle teaches you so many things.
Yeah,
Just realize why that's so important to the earth. Every creature that's living there, whether it's the biggest elephant to the smallest insect in that jungle, they're
yeah,
actually doing a job so that the earth stays proper and we can live a happy
right.
life. And as humans, we do everything that's the most unnatural in the most unnatural ways and try to drive what's right for the earth away. And the situation that we're stuck in right now kind of gives us a clear indication that we've messed up somewhere and consistently keep messing up.
Exactly.
And this is just incidents to underline those.
And what is it that it taught you? Playing a caveman cannot have been easy. Not that anyone can accuse you of doing easy things. You always seem to be going for the difficult role. But what did it teach you? In a way, a preparation for this lockdown?
Well, you can say that for sure. I mean, it's a very different like. Before I tell you about the character, I have to tell you about Prabhu Solomon, the director who I worked with. It's the
Right,
first time I've been working with him. He's worked with elephants before. He's worked with the forest before. If you
right.
see the films of Kumki and Maina, also
Yeah,
he
that's right.
in villages closer to jungles and others.
Right.
So he had an understanding of nature that was very beautiful, very real, which he kind of brought me into during the times we started prepping,
Hmm.
and we spent those 20, 30 days to kind of understand the look of how this person is going to be, how he lives,
Hmm.
and kind of discovered this character in the jungle itself. So it was not something that we did in a workshop,
Hmm.
then went to the jungle. It was the other way around. We
Right.
trained with the elephants, went to the locations, hung around there, spoke there. I dressed like him, and we started creating details of different people who lived like that across the world. We've taken examples from Africa, India. There's a gentleman called Jadav Piang, who is called the forest man of India. He's actually, in his lifetime, planted an entire forest. He planted close to lakhs of trees and in
Wow.
the Brahmaputra basin. And
Right.
that led to an entire forest and an ecosystem coming back.
Right.
It's really a power of one man. I mean, one man can do a lot,
Right.
and that's what this character kind of taught me. And wherever you are, you could be in a little hole in a cave or
Yeah.
a massive jungle. It still is the same. When you're alone, you still create things for yourself and do the right things, right? So I think that's really what the film taught me, and taught me of you got to listen to the earth at all times.
Right.
That the earth tells you. It's not like you can just make bullish and bold decisions and go forward without that in consideration. And most thoughts that we make today usually don't have that in our
Yeah.
first list of agenda. I think that should change.
Right. But Rana, you come from a family which sort of was one of the foundational families of the Telugu film industries, and I've heard you talk about how you lived on the first floor, and the studio would be coming up virtually in Jubilee Hills out of rocks, literal rocks,
Yeah. And
and
that's where I'm sitting right now.
yeah, and that must obviously be deeply entrenched in your, in your heart and your soul. And is that what propels you to look for stories that other people normally would not see?
Well, every time, I mean, as I see, first before being an actor or anything, I mean, first I come from this family, so I guess there's a lot of influence of
Yeah,
cinema and of how things are made.
right.
Uh, and what attracts you is you become a movie buff. You like movies. You
Yeah,
become, and every time as inclination, even as a child, I liked watching stuff uh, that nobody that is far away, a little far fetched from the real world. I
right.
just feel cinema was the closest thing to magic.
Yeah,
And you can create a world, you can create a universe, you can transport people literally
right.
in that mind space in the time you are. So I think whenever I pick a movie, it's still still try to be in another universe which is apart from the daily desk job that one has to do.
Hmm.
And whether it's you go into a submarine, go underwater, whether
Yeah.
it's you go into a jungle, whether you go into a war, I gotta go. You gotta go places if you want to come see me in the movies. So
Absolutely. I mean, there's no part of the world. I think now the only thing left is perhaps we need to see you fly. I guess you'll be doing that soon as well.
something will come up. Not that far away.
I wanted to talk to you about Hiranyakashyap. That's the movie that you're working on, and like all your projects, it will not happen overnight, and you have tremendous patience, which I applaud you for. But it's such a difficult character, a man who takes on Vishnu. Not everybody has that power.
Like I think where mythology and folklore come from, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's always been my earliest fascination of stories. Uh, I mean, not from now, right from when I was probably 8 or 10 years old. My mom was a big fan of Amar Chitrakatha, and that's how I started reading them.
Hmm.
And they explain mythology. See, I understood mythology as stories even before I understood them as gods and
Right.
religious myths. Right? So once they're characters to you, to me, whether it was Phantom, whether I was reading Amar Chitrakatha, they all felt the same.
Hmm.
And I think I continued growing up in that mindset.
Hmm.
And as a film viewer, Hiranyakashipu is such a popular story in Indian folklore, Indian mythology,
Yeah.
Indian culture. And it was also the first Telugu film that was ever made.
Right.
First Telugu film was Bhakta Prahlad, and
Right.
it was also made in the 60s with actually one of my favorite actors is Mr. S.V. Rangarao playing Hiranyakashipu.
Right.
And also made in, I think, the 70s with Mr. Rajkumar in Kannada.
Right.
And Puneet played Prahlad.
Right.
And that film went on for running a year or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And this was made in the bhakti time, in the devotional movement of India at that point.
Right.
And I just feel like these stories today, with what we can actually do, and I think post Bahubali, we've kind of understood that, listen, if there's a dream, there's a way to actually make it.
Yeah.
And today we have workflows, we have understanding of visual effects, we have things that are much, much better. And I think it's time the world views Indian culture in a story that's as is. So,
Absolutely.
so that's really where we are heading at. And I think that's such a powerful character, the Rakshasas,
The
the
king of Rakshasas. I mean, you could easily have wanted to play Prahlad, but what draws you to, like Baladev, such a powerful character, but not necessarily good. What draws you to such
First,
character?
first, I think I become an actor because regular, like my desk job is pretty boring. I got to run an office. I got like employees. I got MIS reporting, all these things going on, and that's not, not what I like, right? So, I think just being an actor gives you so much power. I think what you just learn from people, you learn from these kings. You get to be somebody else, embody somebody else.
Right.
And what I was very like, I was just running this through some now because all of us have a lot of time.
Yeah.
realize that all the films that I've done actually look physically completely different from the other.
Absolutely.
Whether it's Damarodam to Bahubali to Ghazi, I mean, there's nothing that's it's the same guy, right? And I think somewhere I wanted that growing up, and I just liked the fact that you can play many roles, and I
Yeah.
realized that's what an actor is supposed to do. So
No,
I think
I have to say, sorry to interrupt, but I just, I was reading your Wikipedia and I realized you were in Ye Jawani, Ye Diwani. I said, huh? Really?
yes,
Where were you? And
one
I
star.
saw that
Yeah,
you look so different,
yeah, that,
you know? So that physicality is very important to you. I mean, shedding weight, gaining muscle, growing your hair, cutting it. How important is that physicality?
see, one first, I think cinema is a visual medium, right?
Yeah.
And see now when a director like Rajmouli comes and tells you this is a scene where Balal Dev is a man who can kill a bison with his bare hands. Now
Right.
you got to look that part. You got
Right.
to look as big as the bison is in all probabilities, or create something that's slightly superhuman.
Right.
So we need to build our structures and bodies to that size. And actually, right after Bahubali, I started. I played a little cameo in a film called the NTR biopic.
Yeah. Right. I saw that.
I actually played Chandrababu Naidu,
Chandra Babu Naidu.
and it was pretty. And I had to look like him.
Yeah.
And I think, see, each of these films gets you through this exercise and playing somebody live who's actually relevant to today's time.
Yeah.
And going back in time was, I think, only cinema can actually give you that, right?
Right.
You revisited a time that was part of Indian politics or Andhra politics at that point.
Yeah.
It was
And
pretty
so critical. That again was such a. It was a small role, but a very critical
very
role.
good. And I thought I must, that was something that I wanted to do.
Did Chandrababu Naidu tell you what he felt when he saw himself?
Yeah, yes, I actually spent a lot of time with him in the beginning, and he was very happy with what I portrayed.
Good. But let's go a little into what you do off screen as well, because that's a whole a different thing. You're using technology to help startups. Using technology to tell stories. Talk a little about this love for technology. Does it really come from watching Star Wars and Indiana Jones, or
Well,
more than that?
well, right now next to my office, this is a lightsaber that I had from 10th grade.
Wow, really? Can
Yes.
you can you just can you do that swish?
You do a switch, no, I'm not doing a switch. And
This is from 10th grade?
yeah, this is when I was in 10th grade. I got it in the US. Uh,
Wow.
that's actually half a saber. It's Darth Maul saber, half of it.
Okay.
And that mural you see on my wall is actually George Lucas.
Wow.
So yes, so I'm a pretty much a Star Wars geek like that. And my first job actually in the movies was with visual effects.
Right.
That was my first proper job, and continued being an actor. And visual effects was really the add-on that you needed to real life
Yeah.
to create a spectacle. Now you want to go back in time. You want to go back to the Ramayana, to the Mahabharata, to the times uh, that is believed as myth or history, and it's such a thin line right now in our minds as Indians, right?
Yeah.
Now to show that back, to show that magical time again, I think visual effects is the only way we can do it. And I think now as we're getting better and better, we're just ready for really big spectacle films, and we'll be watching a lot of those for sure.
And I believe you're doing an animated show as well.
Yes, this was what I picked up during lockdown. I realized you can't do much, but do whatever you can do for society. And I said, what can I do apart from acting? I'm not. No one's going to call me for shoot anytime soon. So the two things I knew, I said I know how to talk. So I said let's put a chat show together, and
Right.
then get animated because I like animation as a form.
Hmm.
So I actually met an artist, a visualizer on Instagram, and that's how we started talking, and we started building the show. It'll be out soon, just
Wow.
doing development.
Is it going to be on a streaming platform
Yes,
or?
on a streaming platform,
Okay. So that'll be the first time that Rana will appear on a streaming platform. My God, it'll be a big thing, huh?
and I'll be animated.
But Rana, also this unofficial role that you play, which is sort of this bridge between Telugu cinema. and indeed now increasingly the southern cinema and what is known as Bollywood, through personal relationships, and of course, uh, impressing upon uh, the Mumbai storytellers what is available in the south. And I think you want to talk a little about that. It comes from your friendships, but also from you as a storyteller.
See, like again, like it's happened now with probably me in my generation, but when growing up, right? I mean, they were my grandfather made Hindi films. Hindi producers used to
Yeah,
have more collaboration, which I saw when I was when I was much younger,
all
and
the Jitendra and
like my grandfather, I think made between Anil Kapoor and Jitendra, we probably made like 20 films or something like that.
exactly,
And the companies made over 35 films in Hindi, and
right,
there's so many directors who made a lot of Hindi films in from Hyderabad,
yeah,
actors who traveled.
yeah,
Back then, like Chiranjeev Garu did a Hindi film, Venki did a Hindi film, Nag
mm,
did a Hindi film,
right,
and after that there was some kind of drift that happened, and everybody was doing their own thing. I think,
right, right.
but to me, it was always one and the same, right? I never treated it differently. I remember right, even before Leader completed, that's my first Telugu film.
First film, yeah,
Rohan had called me for Dammaru. Rupa and Rohan had called me for Dammarudam.
right.
And that's when I read it. Now, that was a story which was set in Goa. It was, you know what Dammarudam is. You know how fun that is.
Drugs,
Yeah.
mafia.
I said, I can never do this in Telugu. I said, let's go, right? So it's ultimately the story that kind of takes you places. And I also remember during Ghazi attack when I made it.
Yeah,
Now, at that point, to make a submarine-based war film in Telugu, nobody kind of wanted to fund that film. Nobody wanted to do anything with it at that point. Till
right,
we figured that we can actually release this film and make a national product out of it.
right,
So then I realized it's ultimately the stories have to travel. It's an effort that one has to make, and we have a much bigger audience. And then Bahubali just came and just broke all those floodgates and said, "Here you go. This is what Indian cinema looks like." And that's what the size is, I think.
but
And
you
it's
would, sorry, no, go on.
and I was saying it's also important for us to understand the country as a whole,
Yeah,
because it's so see what happens in Telugu. There's something very different happening in Kerala, or very different in Tamil, very different in Kannada. Like in the South itself, there are 5, 6 solid industries that make
yeah,
different and unique cinema.
right.
So I think if we collaborate as a nation of cinematic language, right? I think that's way bigger than what anybody in the world could actually do to us.
But you were also very instrumental in introducing Karan Johar to the idea of Bahubali, and then of course he put his money and muscle behind it as well, and that I think helped it in that
Completely.
crossover.
Yeah, see, completely like because India is so big and diverse, it's not
Yeah,
like we can't communicate. Yeah, we can't communicate in one language. I mean, we speak English right now, right?
right,
Because there's Hindi, there's Telugu, there's so many others that you need to tell it in. And I realized that every time you have to make a release, you need the right platforming, and uh, and I think Karan was probably the best person to give us that platforming in Bombay, and for Bahubali one just gave a huge entry at that point.
right. How did Bahubali? I know it's been asked thousands of times, but how did Bahubali 1 and 2 change your life? What did it teach you?
See, one is I think it's not changed my life. It just changed Indian cinema forever.
Right,
See, the idea of what you think you can make has completely changed.
right.
The scale of thought has completely changed. Like it's see, probably it's. I mean, if you remember what happened to Star Wars in the '70s and what it did to Hollywood,
Yeah,
and so much rise of technology and others and big spectacle movies. I think Bahubali did just that, if not more. It kind of inspired 5, 6 industries to make big films. Like, see, if you just look at post Bahubali in Telugu as an industry,
yeah,
we have cinema that's 5 times bigger than what it used to be before.
right,
Just because everyone now is brave enough to make these big movies, there's been enough of workforce that's created to make sets that large, make visual effects that large. So I think more and more of this cinema will just change our landscape completely. And see, and we got to operate at an international stage for the first time.
hmm.
The film released in Japan, it became huge. It released in different parts of the world, it became huge. So I think that's very, very important.
But in a sense, Telugu cinema had been here before, right? With Arundhati and that Magadira. You'd had that spectacle before.
Yeah, we had that, but never was platformed correctly.
Right.
Like I remember we were actually part producers on the film Eager. Uh,
Yeah,
I produced it with Maki. It was what it's called.
yeah,
Right? At some fair, we felt like we didn't platform it correctly in Bombay,
right,
because that to us was completely internationalist thought. It's such a
right,
wonderful film. It
yeah,
does so well on television at all times
right.
that it's played. And here you go. And Bahubali, we said it has to be the best, and you got to, because we're making something that's bigger than what anybody's ever made,
Hmm.
and it needs that right platforming. And there you go. It all then things change right after that.
Yeah. And I just want to take you back again. In a sense, we saw a little of that with Mani Ratnam as well, with Roja and Bombay. They were really, again, the first crossovers. But again, Tamil cinema sort of then, in a way, fell off the map nationally. Then it just became all about Rajni movies, and it was a spectacle, of course, down south. But even the rest of India treated it like that. But so, are you saying that those what how do you analyze those two phenomena?
See, if you realize when like whether it's Tamil cinema, I'm saying whether it's Bahubali from Telugu or
Yeah,
Robo from Tamil, now anybody who makes a spectacle will will start getting in, and
right.
Rajni, I mean that's a phenomenon altogether, right?
Yeah, that's a separate industry.
That's a separate industry by himself. He's, I mean, undeniably the biggest star or biggest pop culture icon of this generation, without doubt,
Absolutely.
right? In India itself and the world that resonates to him completely differently.
Yeah.
So that aside, I'm just talking about regular cinema. That, and I think, see now you've seen KGF that came out
Yeah.
of India.
Yeah.
Now it still had a spectacle strength. It had it cut through the spaces that it had to cut through,
Right.
and it was Kannada industry coming to light and taking national stage. So I think now it's just become more and more democratic. It's cinema. The languages don't really matter. Today we watch a show like Narcos on Netflix, and
Yeah.
India's already seen it.
Yeah.
I think languages have kind of gone away, and in India more so because we're just so much closer in terms of culture.
Right. So that when you see this national culture being created right in front of your eyes, and when you see people like you, and there's so many young actors and directors and producers in the other southern languages as well, Fahad or
Right.
Dulquer, or so how do you see this is this bright young new wave? Is there anything that unites you?
See,
Do
it's
you
just
talk to each other? Do you exchange notes?
Dulkar is a very good friend of mine. So Dulkar and I are friends for a very long time
Right.
before with the movies and stuff. But I think, see, it's all of. I mean, all of us. I think, I guess, I could speak one part of it where it's just the love for the movies that we or the stories that we tell that will kind of crosses over.
Right.
Right now, I have two films that are here. One is Haathi Mera Saathi, which is a story of a man who lived in the jungle for 25 years. Right
Yeah.
now, whether it's told in Hindi, Telugu, or Tamil, the jungle or the love for the elephant becomes the same.
Right.
Right. And the second film that I'm doing is a film called Virata Parvam
Yes.
that I'm shooting in Telugu because it happened in this region.
Right.
Happened in this region. It happened to these people.
Right.
Right. So now that limits us to call making it Telugu, but we'd like to release it in different places, but in Telugu as a language.
Right.
So I think the story will decide where it goes. And today it's got bigger wings than it had before.
Right. So, talk a little more about the role in Haathi Mere Saathi. It just seems physically so demanding. What you had to carry an elephant's trunk on
Yeah.
you, what, 200 kilos? I mean, how big is an elephant? How much does an elephant weigh, a regular elephant?
I mean, see, the trunk itself is close to about 160, 170 kilos when it just totally drops on you.
God.
See, in the beginning, you're always very wary during training and stuff because you want to be at the right distance. You want to do all of this stuff. But once you end up right there, right in the scene, now you're already comfortable with the elephants. They're comfortable with you. We're just playing, and they also think we're just playing, right?
Huh.
And just a simple trunk that falls on your shoulder as playfulness will just drop you down in 1 second.
Right.
Uh, but they're lovely animals. They're just beautiful. They just feel so much more grander than you are in in the circle of life.
Right.
What I'd like to say about them, and as the role itself, right? One, I think first Mr. Prabhu Solomon was the man who did all of this. There was one exercise that we did here in Hyderabad where I actually cut off my hair. I had very, very short hair, cut off my beard.
Huh.
He created one look and we did a photo shoot and stuff. Then he didn't like it at all. And,
Okay.
and he said, no, this is not what I want. Just keep growing your beard. And
Okay.
let's go to the jungle and decide this. So it was like 6 months away. I was just growing my beard. Started hanging, it kept all the way here. And we went to the jungle. He's put the costumes on me. And then we started understanding how Kardan speaks, how Bandev speaks,
Right.
where did he live? And we realized how he climbs up these places.
Right.
And started understanding from those rangers, tribals, forestmen, others, what life is like there. Whether the pace of his run, whether the pace of his walk. And then all the big size that I had, he wanted me to drop off. And he said, listen, it's a guy in the jungle. This is not how big he wants to be. So he was very fixed about how he wanted to see me. And I guess that's what it was. And I mean, yes, it is hard. I'd never say it's easy for sure.
Yeah.
I think Haathi Mera Saathi is probably the toughest film I've shot. And I've shot Baahubali too. Right? So, this is literally in the jungle, in the middle of earth that you are.
Right.
And
Sorry, Rana, I think we've lost you. Rana, I think we've lost you. Rana.
hi,
My God,
sorry,
you were frozen
sorry,
for so long.
I think we got lost.
Yeah. No, you were
Yes.
talking about being in the middle of the earth and shooting this character.
And see, and I went off the grid, right?
Yeah. I think it was Earth giving you a signal.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what it. I mean, see, I had no cell phones for a while. We had no real connection with the outside world, and the jungle speaks to you very differently
Right.
when you're there.
I wonder what the nights must have been like.
Like there was very few that because first it's pitch dark, it's black. You can't
Yeah.
see anything. You can't see more than 2 or 3 feet, and so we used to try to wrap as early as possible so we don't fall in night, and especially in the areas of the jungle because we shot so close to the wild, we
Right.
had to leave very very quickly, and yeah, so it was very very adventurous for sure. That I can say.
But Rana, I've noticed you don't take yourself very seriously as well. Like in Houseful 4, you were very happy to send yourself up in a way because you were
Yeah,
playing this angry kind of,
yeah,
I love
correct.
that. I think that's a very unusual characteristic for an actor, right?
See, one is it was so ridiculous and funny. I said I must do this, right? The minute Farhad came to Hyderabad, he told me this. I said, dude, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And I know I'm not capable of okaying a script like that or getting something together for myself.
Right.
I said, here you go. This is it. Let me do this.
What was the reaction back home to that role?
They were pretty shocked that I did it. They were like, what are you doing it? I said, yeah. I said, it's crazy. Let's go.
And did it change the way people looked at you in the rest of India?
Uh, I guess no. I mean, there was a pretty much a surprise in some parts of people, but I guess see one is because I'm so spread out. Different people react to me very differently, so
Right.
I'm okay as much as they enjoyed it. I enjoyed myself a lot.
Talk a little about your role as an entrepreneur. Apart from the fact that you ran this special effects firm, then you sold it. You also invest in a lot of startups. What
Uh,
attracts you to a startup?
so first, I think being an entrepreneur or being whatever my desk job holds is still an extension of trying to make cinema better than what it is.
Right.
And it started with investing in technology that could aid making better and better films, whether it's in front of the camera or the business itself. If there were better systems to do the business, we were investing in them. If there were better technologies to make visual effects smoother, faster, or any other format, that's stuff that we've been investing in.
Right.
Uh, then we moved it. Then we. So I think ultimately it's still telling a story, but telling it in the best fashion.
Right.
And today you see everything in the world is almost like 360. A story can be told. It can become a consumer brand. It can become merchandising. Now I'm partners in Amar Chitra Katha, so there's so much more to do with all of it.
Hmm.
So I guess again the drive or the energy comes from storytelling. I think that's whether it's being an entrepreneur or making a movie or acting in it. I think all of it follows pretty much the same rules.
What is it that attracts you about a startup? What makes you invest in it?
Well, first it's the people and the thought. I mean, people first because it's actually an entrepreneur you're backing when you're investing in a startup. The second is the idea of being unique and addressing a problem that's there and finding the gap. Because in at least in the entertainment industry, I've been here long enough to say these are the gaps that we've identified. If this is better, we'll make this faster.
Hmm.
I'll just give you a quick example of what we've working on. We're now working on a rights management blockchain-based technology.
Right.
Earlier, so now we're going to start selling most of our films with a blockchain ID, and so in that way we're just able to sell it to many more parties across the world
Right.
than to our limited known structures.
Right.
So like this, we've just been taking and renovating and getting ready for the new world.
Right. Do you think that the world is going to change substantively after the lockdown is lifted in terms of the kind of entertainment that they will consume?
See, one is there's two sides to it. First, we must never forget that there's a big virus that's hovering over us
Yeah.
in some way or the other.
Right.
Uh, Now, a large part of what we do will depend on that in terms of how we will be able to get back on our feet and what guidelines to that we'll receive. I think first keeping that in play. The second thing is what we've seen emerging in this lockdown is we definitely know there'll be a lot more IT and other sectors that will continue working from home.
Right.
Uh, Most of the social media companies or even the giants itself have continued and making policies of working from home.
Right.
So if that really happens, cinema and restaurants and all of them will really start flourishing
Yeah.
because that's a great takeaway from it for sure. Uh, but in this mid gap, it's also going to be a rise of the OTT. There will be so much more newer and democratic content being sold. Uh, Today, you see a bunch of ways where it's classified into cinema, into digital, into theatrical,
Yeah.
into XY. But you'll see many more emerging trends. You will see people opening independent theaters online. You will have content is king. I mean, the way you will be able to drive it and monetize it is going to completely change. I think as
Right.
from years to come.
But your family is invested in 300, over 300 screens as well.
Yeah.
So you remain a theater first proponent, or you're okay if something premieres on streaming first?
See, if one is for us, I guess we got to take that call. See, we don't know what to exactly take a call in the next 6 months. Definitely, there's some cinema that will go directly to OTT because of the weight and the interest factors that the film and the talent have got. Uh, it's not right as a
Right.
company to hold on to talent for a very long time and not release their movies. If it's big stuff like
Yeah.
ours, obviously we can hold and we can wait that time and wait for the perfect time to release it. Second, in terms of OTT or theater, as a company, we've taken very clear directions in terms of what will be theater and what will be OTT.
Right.
Anything that's big spectacle based, that's experiential in nature, will continue to be in the theater, uh, and that's what the theater audience will want. Things that are more drama driven, things that have longer form in terms of storytelling, will move to the OTT. So we're bifurcating it based on storytelling as opposed to uh, the other way around.
Right.
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 See, because man will continue to be entertained in all mediums, and
Yeah.
we'd like to be in as many as possible.
And as you said in your TED talk, technology, you want technology to empower you to tell better stories.
Right.
Does that also mean technology can also help in identifying through algorithms, as we all know, what is it that turns people on? What is it that, gets them excited? Is that
One,
part of the idea?
See, there's many analysis softwares. There's many analysis techs. In fact, we have an analysis tech in house. We've been working with a company called Woodcutter. All of it. I mean, it definitely makes our efficiency much sharper for sure in
Right.
terms of choosing content. But ultimately, it'll still rely upon those set of few filmmakers to actually make it and tell it right.
Right.
So, but where I was referring to tech is more in terms of the way we make technology, in terms of the way we shoot, in terms of how visual effects are created, in terms of how can we shoot with LEDs. Today, that emerging tech is very different.
Right.
Like like if you see Hollywood, I mean, whether you see Disney or Marvel or any of these companies, they're
Yeah.
so technology backed. They'll be as solid as an IT company is.
Yeah.
They create softwares, they create rigs, they create stuff, they invent things, they invent formats to make their movies. I think there's been a great marriage with the IT sector and the entertainment sector in the West for sure,
Right.
for in Hollywood for sure. But
Right.
I think that's something that I'd be looking forward to, and part of my effort through Antle is trying to build tech for movies.
Yeah, because say what Jeffrey Katzenberg has done with QB, created a
Yes,
completely new format of
correct.
consuming entertainment. Something like that should surely come out of India, right?
I'm sure. And see, and there's so much content right now, and we're language driven. We're not one language driven country at
Right,
all, right?
right,
We're 20 language driven country. Uh, so the models that kind of work in the West don't directly apply here because we're not like America where we all speak one language and it goes. So
right,
we're like Europe, but with the size three times of America and Europe together, right?
right.
So it's many states that have different cultural identities, different languages, but each of them have market sizes that are bigger than most countries in Europe. So,
Exactly.
so it's a big space. And mind space in India is huge,
Yeah,
head space, right? So I think there'll be a lot more content in the years to come for sure.
right. And how do you see your role? You see your role as an actor, producer, tech entrepreneur, or just as a
Well,
storyteller who just is in all these mediums?
I guess I'm just a storyteller in all these mediums. I'm just going to be sitting on the same desk, and whatever job that needs me to get done, I get done. That's about it.
Whether it is acting in Houseful 4 or whether it is being Hiranyakashipu.
Yeah, it's see ultimately the approach or the ethic is the same to whatever I do.
Right. Your
Yeah.
role in Baby was fantastic as well. Did you
Thank you.
enjoy playing Jay
Yes.
Bafor?
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And that's a film. Like I think every film that I did taught me something else, and I could do something else with it right after.
Right,
Like I keep telling Neeraj, if it wasn't for Baby, I wouldn't have been able to figure out how to make Ghazi.
right.
Uh, I think the nature of writing screenplays and others that I learned from Neeraj and could bring it back home and share it with everybody here, we were able to just make better and better movies. So I
Right.
think each film will teach me something and I'll figure something else out of it. And that's what life will keep going.
But you don't work in like one film at a time. I mean, you have several films going on, although, of course, you're shooting at a particular.
See, mostly I end up shooting one film at a time,
Hmm.
but just because the development of these takes so long.
Yeah,
See, like Bahubali from idea to film is a 7-year process,
right.
right? Now that's a whole lifetime or a half career of an actor,
Yeah,
right? So see, these films take very long when you start it, and see, because ultimately I'm somehow part of production, or at least I'm governing the dates. I kind of organize each thing because I look very independently different in each film.
Right.
So I got to do everything at once and then move to the next.
Exactly.
So
And
yeah,
yeah.
prep wise there'll be a lot going on, but once I shoot, I get to just one and get it done.
So 10 years now in the industry, Rana, what is the biggest high and the worst low?
Biggest high, I guess Bahubali, obviously. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
my high, it's the country's high itself. I mean, just the fact that we could do something like that from India and make it so big across the world itself was the big high. And as knowledge, I think the most that I've ever learned. So, like you said, 5 years, 10 years in my career, 5 years I was in Bahubali. So it's pretty much half my life in there.
Right.
So I always keep saying, I said, we went to the school of Mahishmati and we scholared out, right? That's where we went to study. And what's the worst low? Like the biggest low is probably is losing my grandfather.
Ah,
This whole time, uh, I mean, I guess he was he was the one who kind of drove us. He was driven. He constantly wanted to do things. Uh, he's made movies. He's made over 150 movies just by himself. So
yeah,
that's a pretty hardcore one to match. And
absolutely.
so him, I think losing him was the biggest low, and I guess he'll be missed a lot. But we'll be looking at us and from somewhere and saying, "Here you go, guys, do the right job."
Just two or three quick questions from the audience, Rana, and then we'll let you go.
Yes,
Uh,
please.
Something from Aryan. Do you think you will ever do another movie like Bahubali in your lifetime? Do you like the idea of period cinema? Aryan.
Uh, well, I'd love to do many more things like Bahubali. In fact, we like to do more Bahubalis itself, and uh, and yes, I have a big fascination and I have a love for period, and I think cinema is the only
Yeah,
thing that can throw you in that place. You can live in a time that you heard of only if you're in the
yeah,
movies.
right. Lily, someone called Lily wants to know what have you been doing during lockdown and when will you start shooting again?
Well,
Ah,
Lily, I'm making an animation movie, animation chat show, and uh, I don't know when I'm going back to shoot. I have a film ready to release, so once we have the screens open, you'll see a movie first.
right. And Raju Sundar wants to know will your life change drastically after you get married?
Well, I'm not thinking so. Uh, I hope not, but no, I don't think so. So Mika is fun and chill that way. She keeps things easy for me.
Right. And just the last thing, Rana, I'd like to let you go, but just a message I think about what happened in Kerala. I think that would be really appropriate to the
Well,
end.
first, I think it's the cruelest act of mankind
Yeah.
that you've ever seen towards animals,
Right.
and one is, see, I don't even know what to say. I mean, you just you don't. It's awareness. It is strict laws. It is uh, education. It's everything, right? I think all of these have to be given to people, taught uh, responsibly, either by governments or NGOs or everybody together.
Right.
See, like filmmakers, this is our tool. Our tool is to tell a story,
Right.
and this is how we try to influence. But I take an urge to for the entire society to kind of move and emerge once uh, these things are done with.
Right. Thank you so much, Anna. You've
Thank
been
you,
a
thank
real
you,
sport, and
thank you.
we
Such a
really
pleasure.
enjoyed the conversation.
Such a
And
pleasure.
all the very best for Haathi Mere
Thank you,
Saathi.
thank you, thank you so much. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.